31 unanswered points and quite the night for Russell Wilson and the Pittsburgh Steelers offense as they roll on Sunday Night Football by your final score 37-15. The Steelers victorious here in week 7 at home against the Jets. Pleasant good evening to you. I'm Ed Troop. Welcome to the Steeler postgame show right here on Oneberg, sponsored by Shenderovich and Fishman. Glad to have you with us here on Sunday night. We welcome your comments here on Oneberg, on our Oneberg Facebook channel, our Oneberg YouTube channel, or maybe you're listening back on Spotify. And joining me on the postgame show is my good friend, Dawn Rebel of the Trib Live High School Sports Network. And Dawn, Steeler Nation can be very happy tonight, I would think, right? It started out a little bit bumpy. We're going to talk about it here throughout the postgame show. But ultimately, Russell Wilson and that offense and the defense sure turned it on in the second half as the Steelers get to 5-2 on the season with a big win against the Jets.
First things first, Edward, in honor, little throwback. I don't know if you can see. Can you see?
Looks great.
Yeah. The Jack Lambert in honor of the 50th anniversary that the Steelers were celebrating this weekend. Yeah, really a strong showing by all three units. The defense had some tackling issues early on, and that's when you're playing the Jets, especially this version of Aaron Rodgers. It's a lot of dink and dunk, a lot of quick passes, and I had thought that and told a couple people that tackling the ball, the receiver, not giving up a lot of yak yards was important. And we got burned early on in both the Jets scoring drives with big plays because short passes turning into large gains with missed tackles. But, the defense other than that was fabulous, especially considering they played a good portion of the game. I guess Jackson got hurt. I'm not sure he came back. The offense, again, a little bit of a slow start, but then I think, like you said, 30 unanswered points or whatever it was. And the special teams has been fantastic all year. I've been critical of the special teams in the past, but they have just been money all the way around all season long. So this, against a pretty good team, a very impressive victory.
Let's talk about the first half, Dawn. Opening drive for Russell Wilson. Nice completion to Darnell Washington to start out that drive. They had a little bit of momentum going. They have to settle for a field goal to go up 3-0. Then the defense forces a 3-and-out on the Jets. Steelers on their second offensive series, they go 3-and-out. Jets get the ball back. Their second drive starts with a 15-yard unsportsmanlike conduct call against Obajobi, and that kind of ignited that offense as the Jets took over, went right down the field, scored, made it a 7-3 game. Many missed tackles on that second series that led to the Jets' touchdown. They had momentum, and then the next three offensive possessions for the Steelers were all 3-and-outs. And Russell Wilson did not look good at times. The line wasn't blocking. The running game was doing nothing. And everybody got a little bit tight and started thinking about Justin Fields. There was some chance at Acrisure Stadium. But Mike Tomlin, of course, he did not panic. He did not blink, as he says. And finally, Wilson hits a big pass play to George Pickens. That leads to a field goal to make it 7-6 in the second quarter with 8:20 left. The next drive, multiple missed tackles again on Hall. A bad call on Mika Fitzpatrick on that blocked extra point. They called it a leverage, which clearly wasn't. That leads to a 2-point conversion try, and that made the score 15-6 Jets with 5:29 left in the second quarter. And at that point, things weren't looking too good for the black and gold.
There was that sequence where you started to think this might not be our night when Wilson on a third down threw a perfect pass to Austin. Austin had it for a moment, then all of a sudden he just dropped it. They punt, the punt returner for the Jets muffs it, but the ball takes a gratuitous bounce for New York and bounces out of bounds. And then the Ogunjobi tackle and the penalty, the 15-yard penalty, deservedly so. But then the Jets had one later on that wasn't called. But whatever, I'm not going to bang the officials on that. But that combination, then of course they go down and score. it just sort of made you feel a little woof. And I thought, I don't know what your take is, Ed. I thought that first drive, Wilson was sharp. And then after the Austin drop, those next three series, I mean, it was ugly.
Yeah, as soon as Austin dropped that pass, right in his hands, should have been enough to convert a first down opportunity for the Steelers. You're right. The next three series were ugly for Russell Wilson and the Steelers offense. I thought the turning point, Dawn, was the defense once again making a big play when they had to, and that was in Beanie Bishop. Comes up with a big interception under 2 minutes left in the first half. That set the Steelers up at midfield. Wilson then hits Pickens again for his first touchdown of the season for both of them, for Russell Wilson and George Pickens. That made it 15-13, but the Steelers had the momentum going into the halftime locker room. Again, I thought that first of two interceptions on the night, we'll talk about the second in a little bit, but that first interception by Beanie Bishop, just under 2 minutes left in the first half with the Jets trying to drive to get another score before halftime, I thought that was the turning point in this football game.
Yeah, and to go back to something you said earlier, for the offense, I thought the big play was the home run ball. Tremendous catch by Pickens. He is so good at making those contested catches. That really it sort of stopped the boo birds, because if they go three and out there, not only is the crowd very vocal against the home team, but then maybe Mike Tomlin isn't as patient. But so I thought that was huge. And you're right. Jets looked like they were, after we couldn't punch it in and, settle for a field goal, it looked like they were going to go down and at least get another 3 points and then get the ball in the second half. It did not look good. That was a tremendous physical play, athletic play, I should say, by Beanie Bishop. That was not, he reached back and pretty much one-handed made the catch, taking it away from the Jets receiver. I'm not sure if it was Wilson or Lazard. But that was you're right. That was probably the key play. Then the Steelers were able to punch it in and wrestle some momentum going into the locker room.
Second half started out pretty good for the Steelers as well. They continued to build on that momentum. Alex Highsmith, I thought, looked very good tonight, Dawn. His first game back after missing, about 4 weeks, I think, 4 games with that injury. Put some pressure on Rodgers in the opening third quarter, forced a punt in that situation. I thought Highsmith, opposite side of Watt, who was getting double teamed all night long, really couldn't do much, did bat down a pass late in the game, which was pretty impactful in this football game. But Alex Highsmith, and I'm one of them, you and I were texting, and you said you were one of many that wanted Herbig to take over for Highsmith. And hey, I admit it when I'm wrong, and I was definitely wrong on that one. Highsmith looked sharp tonight.
He just does so many things. And again, it sort of gets lost in the weeds because of the deserved attention that Watt makes. But he's so good against the run. He's so good on the edge. And when you only have so many linemen and guys you can protect with. And so if you got 2 or 3 guys over here with TJ, a lot of times it's one-on-one. And there were probably a couple of holds that the Jets tackle got away with. But Highsmith was winning those battles. He was putting a majority of the pressure on Rodgers. You're not going to get a lot of pressure because he throws the ball so quickly. And I'll just say this, boy, does he look shot. He is kind of he's one of the greatest of all time, but he is not that now. And the Jets have gone all in on him and his buddies. We'll see. I think they have a lot of weapons. I think they'll be in the hunt for a playoff spot, but he does not look good to me at all.
Yeah, Rodgers showed his age a few times, especially in that second half.
Yeah.
Once the Steelers had the momentum and were putting some pressure on them, especially from a defensive standpoint. I agree with you there. Hey, we welcome your comments here on Oneberg tonight. James checks in and says, Wilson played well, but some nice catches helped him. Not much pressure on Rodgers. And he said, which one of you guys was that running on the field during the second half? It wasn't Don and it wasn't me, James, but whoever it was, I'm sure they were escorted out quickly. And also, James checks in a second time and says, if Collinsworth says Wilson throws a moon ball one more time, I may have smashed my TV. Yeah, Chris Collinsworth was pretty complimentary of Russell Wilson tonight. Lots of compliments. He loves Russ Wilson.
Well, when they signed Russell Wilson. I mean, you may get tired of Chris Collinsworth saying anything, but he's actually right. When they signed Russell Wilson, his thing, even last year in Denver, this isn't a 10 years ago thing, was he does take his share of sacks, but he does have a long arc, especially on the long ball, and he's got one of the best passing percentages on deep passes in NFL history, and part of it is because he has that trajectory, that high trajectory. Aaron Rodgers does the same thing, and that allows someone like Pickens, who is just spectacular. I mean, you can nitpick about this, that, and the other thing with his from a maturity level, but he is so good. I mean, he wasn't open on a lot of those catches, and yet he was able to. The one catch I was talking about, the one-handed catch that sort of got the offense going. The touchdown reception was not an easy catch, and I think the biggest thing between Wilson and Fields on those kind of passes is Fields, like, he's got a strong arm, but sometimes he doesn't have the touch, and that's something he's got to work on, and he admitted he has to work on.
Well, you and I talked last week about that, how as good as Justin Fields is with his legs, and he can make plays, extend plays in the red zone. He's going to score with his legs, but at some point in this season, the Steelers are going to have to win with a pass touchdown. They're going to have to win with their passing game. And Fields just doesn't give you that look as much as Wilson does, and Wilson certainly showed that, especially in the second half with his arm, taking shots downfield, throwing the touchdown passes tonight. And I think that's what Mike Tomlin and this team knew what they had in Russell Wilson, and that's why they wanted to get him in here to see if he could possibly execute that, and he certainly did in the second half. We'll get to some more of your comments here on Oneberg in just a second, but Dawn, I want to talk to you real quick too. We saw the circus catch by Pickens in the second half when Wilson hit him. That led to another field goal midway through the third quarter that gave the Steelers their first lead of the game, 16-15. But how about Beanie Bishop? His second interception on the next drive. He almost takes it all the way to the house for a touchdown. Russell Wilson then sneaks the touchdown in on the next play to give the Steelers a 23-15 lead with 7:15 left in the third quarter. For those that don't know Beanie Bishop, he is a undrafted rookie free agent that the Steelers picked up for training camp. They liked him in training camp. They kept him on the roster as a slot defensive back. And he's from West Virginia. He's a WVU grad. And Beanie Bishop tonight certainly earned a lot of stars with those 2 picks. And I think he had 5 or 6 tackles as well.
Yeah, the first one, like I said, was a spectacular athletic play. The second one, I was more impressed with the return. He darn near took it to the house, weaving in and out of traffic the entire return. It was a gratuitous bounce, right? It was right in, again, off, I think it was Wilson, off of his chest, bounced right to Bishop's. So, yeah, that's good. But the thing about that play, and maybe part of the reason why it wasn't caught, when I saw it live, I thought, did Bishop get a piece of it? Did he tip it? He did not, but he got his hand up there to the point where maybe he caused a little bit of a screen, or the receiver was expecting it to be tipped. He came very close to getting a piece of it. Did not, but still was alert to get the reset or the bounce off and the return almost all the way. And he struggled, but I mean, he's a free agent rookie, sort of thrust into that position, with Sutton out, and for only one more game. So he has, I think, steadily improved. I know teams are going to pick on him because of how well Jackson and Porter are playing. So, he had a strong game, and those 2 plays were huge to the outcome.
Steelers 37, Jets 15 on Sunday Night Football. The Steelers improved to 5-2 on the season. You're watching the Shenderovich and Fishman Steeler postgame show here on Oneberg. I am Ed Troop. That's Dawn Rebel with me. Brian is out tonight, in case you haven't noticed. Brian actually went to the game with his son, Cy, tonight to take the game in, so he took the night off. So we pull in our good friend Dawn Rebel to talk Steeler football with us. And Dawn, back to some comments here. Chad checks in. He says, if we can pick up a solid number 2 receiver, look out. And Todd also agrees there. He says the Steelers need to add DeAndre Hopkins from the Titans. They will be looking to dump him soon. And James checks in and says that we definitely need a second receiver. That would be huge. Don, what's your thoughts on the second receiver opposite side of George Pickens? We did see Van Jefferson tonight finally make a little bit of an impact on this offense tonight. Maybe it's because his dad is the wide receiver coach for the Jets, and they wanted to showcase him a little bit. But I think he had a couple. We'll get to the final numbers here in a second. But Jefferson, 2 catches, 15 yards, and that touchdown that he had in the second half.
Yeah, it's not good enough. I mean, he hasn't been what we thought he was going to be because he's been miscast. He's a true number 3. Austin is a true number 3. I completely agree with our viewers and their comments. I said it during the game, especially when Wilson started getting the passing game going. He obviously was looking at number 14 a lot, and 14 came up large with a lot of spectacular catches. But he's going to need help. You need a legit number 2 receiver, which we don't have on the roster. The hot rumor is Mike Williams from the Jets. I don't want him. I'm not interested in Hopkins either. I know they're veteran receivers. The one guy I'd love to get, and again, we're only speculating, he might not be available, but for a struggling Jacksonville team is Christian Kirk. I think he has a year left on his contract. It's rather modest, and he's a guy that could make a difference as a number 2. But you need somebody who, and I'm not saying I'm opposed to having a seasoned veteran, but again, I don't know that those guys at this point are what we need. If we can add, and I think they will, a legitimate number 2 receiver, man, that's going to make this offense even better.
Steven checks in and says, if anyone saw that this team was going to put up 37 points tonight, they are lying, including Mike T. And Todd says they still need to score touchdowns in the red zone. Got a little bit better of that tonight, though, Dawn. I thought Russell Wilson did a pretty good job with that, finding George Pickens in the end zone. And, of course, also coming back and finding Van Jefferson, as we just talked about, in the end zone as well. And, of course, Najee Harris takes that touchdown in at the end to cap things off. But I thought the Steeler offense, you can't complain. You look at the last 2 weeks, they scored 32 points last week at Las Vegas, right? So they put up another 37 tonight against the Jets, who came in as the number 10th ranked defense in the NFL. This defense, even though it was beat up, was still a pretty solid unit coming in.
No, you're right. That's really where they've hung their hat over the last couple of years when the offense was struggling, is they've had one of the better defenses. But man, it was riddled coming in, and it got worse as the game progressed. But that's what you're supposed to do, right? You take advantage of teams' weaknesses. We have certain areas that we've been hit hard with injuries, and teams aren't going to feel sorry for us. So I thought they did what they had to do in winning. I thought this was going to be. I told our mutual friend Steve Nagler before the game that I thought it was going to be high scoring because of I thought that they were going to get some points, especially with all these additions and all the weapons they have. And I thought that we would have to outscore them. I'm not going to sit here and say I thought we needed to score 37, but it's nice.
Well, joining the program.
Who has invaded our space? Who is that?
The myth, the man, the legend. I can't believe you're home already. You beat traffic already? Brian is into the postgame show. You beat traffic, or did you leave early?
I left early. Good evening, Dawn. Good evening, Ed. I did leave early. When we scored the second touchdown to go up, I was like, let's get out of here. But so did a lot of people.
Yeah, no, the one aerial shot when they were driving to air out the clock, there's a lot of empty seats. Way to bring home a winner, though, Brian. I give you all the credit.
Thank you. I got to tell you, man, Heinz Field was on fire tonight, man. I don't know what it is, but maybe it was that we wanted to bounce back from Dallas, or it didn't seem like people were too hyped about Russell Wilson overall, but Heinz Field was rocking tonight.
Brian, you were there with your son Cy tonight too. Talk about the atmosphere. You and I were texting a little bit early on, and Dawn and I talked about this at the beginning of the post-game show. There were 3 consecutive 3-and-outs by Russell Wilson, in which Wilson looked awful, the running game looked awful, the offensive line looked awful, and there were chants of Justin Fields already going on at Acrisure Stadium. How was the atmosphere at that point? And then once Russell Wilson started to settle in and obviously put up some big numbers tonight, fans had to be pretty pumped.
I thought there was a lot of drunk fans screaming Justin Fields, to be honest with you. Like,
Yeah.
it wasn't like a sea of Justin Field chants. Like, it was okay. And then it kind of died down the second that they put something on the scoreboard. It wasn't like the Matt Canada chants of last year. But I mean, everything changed pretty fast, man. Fields would have done well tonight, right? The Jets aren't that great, but Wilson looked really good. He started getting his feet under him. He started to put some muscle behind those passes, and he took the Mason Rudolph playbook. When George Pickens is one-on-one, throw it to him. Doesn't take a brain surgeon to figure that out.
George Pickens tonight, fellas, 5 catches for 111 yards and a touchdown. Pat Freiermuth, also a pretty solid game as well. 2 catches for 51 yards. We talked about Calvin Austin with that 36-yard reception. Darnell Washington, they used him quite a bit tonight too, especially on first down, throwing him 4 passes for 36 yards. But Don, George Pickens, no touchdowns coming in. He gets his first touchdown of the season and a big night, 111 yards.
Well, he's got to be thrilled. Again, what does Russell Wilson bring to this team? He brings the threat of throwing the ball deep and throwing it successfully deep, which we saw that. And every time he went deep, I think he was targeting number 14. So Pickens has got to be thrilled with at least the debut of Russell Wilson. And also what that does, you hit a couple of those, you don't see the 8-man boxes, and then you can have success on the ground. When you're running against those 8-man boxes, I don't care who you are, you're probably not going to have a whole lot of success. And I think we saw that as the game went on.
Yeah, tonight, Najee Harris, 21 carries, 102 yards, and that rushing touchdown at the end. Jalen Warren, another solid game, fellas, 12 carries for 44 yards. And here's the final numbers on Russell Wilson. We probably should have started there, right? I kind of went backwards on these numbers. Everybody wants to know about Wilson, and rightfully so. 16 of 29, 264 yards, 2 touchdowns. And the key there, no interceptions. Something that Fields did very well for those first 6 games. We talked about it here on the post-game show quite often. That's not turning the football over. And Russell Wilson protected the football again tonight too as well.
Well, and what do you want from the guys, right? So what we were talking about on the way home was, what do we do now? Like, all right, so we were 4-2 coming in, and Fields looked good. Now we're 5-2. We blow out the Jets, and Wilson looked good. What do we do now? Who are we? Where do we go from here? I still think like Tomlin has created in his own way a QB controversy. No one would have been chanting for Wilson tonight the way they chanted for Fields. And so I still feel like we don't have a quarterback when we're living with 2.
Well, a lot of times that's correct. I agree with you. When you have 2, most times you have none. You were there, Brian, so let me ask you this. It seemed like that first pass, even though it went to Washington, it got a first down, but the crowd was so fired up and behind Wilson. And as Ed mentioned, when he had that spate of 3 and out, and he was throwing some ugly balls, the crowd kind of turned quick. I think it's nice to have. Now you know what you have in Fields. So if Wilson were to get hurt, if Wilson were to struggle, you don't have to sit there and take a loss. You can make a change in game and feel pretty comfortable one way or the other.
And I guess Tomlin does now have another piece in his utility belt, right? So right. Wilson, it's very clear he cannot scramble and throw that ball. He doesn't want to run. He doesn't want to get killed. He's going to be a very set quarterback, right? Where Fields is the complete opposite. So perhaps Tomlin does have two weapons in his belt now to be like, well, in a defense like the Jets, it's beat up and we don't really know where they're going to go. Put in Wilson. He's just going to go out there and pick you apart really slow and steady. In the event of you get like a Baltimore defense or somebody who's really, really intense, maybe bring Fields in there to move. So, all right, I'm with you, Don. Maybe we do have some answers. But ultimately, I don't think this is a Super Bowl caliber team. And so ultimately, Tomlin will still be blamed somehow when we don't go as far as we think we should go, that we didn't know what to do with either of these guys.
CJ checks in and says Fields did good and got us the yards when needed with his legs, but Brian always makes fun of me because I can't read, right? But it's not so much me. It's on the other side of people what they write at 12 o'clock at night.
You're blaming the people that write?
Yes, I'll totally. I'm trying. Well, and then half of my things are zoomed out. But he says here, I'll just go on. CJ goes on and says tonight it felt like we were watching Steelers football. The water was steaming on the stove with Fields, but now it's boiling with cooking with Russ. There you go, Brian. You love that.
Wow, what poet wrote that?
It was a good time all the way around.
It was good.
After some of the Pickens catches tonight, could we say he was right by stating he's always open? Remember, he had that comment this past week.
No, he wasn't on any of those. He wasn't open. He just made fantastic catches. I guess if you want to look at it from that perspective, that even when he's not open, he can make the catch. Okay, but you're not always open.
But he's ready. The one that he
tremendous.
dropped was the one that went straight over the middle. I think it was the end of the second quarter that he kind of just turned into like somehow he was like go gadget arms and went around that defender. He almost had it. This guy can catch a lot. So this is history repeating itself, though. Mason Rudolph knew that. Kenny Pickett somehow didn't. I'm not saying Fields didn't, but I think he has other options before throwing. And so maybe this is a match made in heaven between Russell and George.
Well, you know what? And part of the marching orders for both Pickett and Fields, I think, were unless they're open, don't throw the ball. Be conservative, manage the game. And I think, one of the things that Coach Tomlin said that I kind of agreed with, because I've been sort of waiting for Russell Wilson to be healthy enough to play. And Fields has done, 4-2 is 4-2. However, he said, we've been good. We need to be great. And I'm not saying that they were great tonight, but it's a step in that direction where you can, it's a run first. It's a team that still wants to run. But if you can dial up those long passes here and there, keep the defense honest, then I think you're going to move the ball, and you believe in your defense to shut down the opposing team. You put points on the board more than enough. It's a winning recipe.
Guys, I thought the other big play in the second half as well was when the Steelers blocked that Jets field goal with 2:37 left in the third quarter. Again, the Jets are looking for points there. They get 3. They cut the Steelers' lead down. That was the 9th block since 2022 by Danny Smith's unit. How about that? The Steelers have blocked 9 kicks since the 2022 season. And then Wilson, of course, hits Van Jefferson for that touchdown to make it 30-15 Steelers lead with 12:09 left in the fourth quarter. Dawn, you and I have been critical of Danny Smith over the years. The gum chewing special teams guy that running up and down the sideline tonight. Tonight he was pretty pumped. But how about that though? 9 blocked kicks since 2022. I did not know that. Again, when we first started, Ed, here this evening, I was giving praise to all 3 units, and I admitted that I've been very critical because their special teams have not been up to snuff in recent years. When the offense was struggling, you need some sort of splash play. We just never got it. And this year it has been so incredibly dramatically different. Every phase of special teams, we lose. Everyone's excited about Johnson, them signing Johnson, the punter. We lose him, and it's like, oh boy, Waitman has been money. Yeah,
Boz is money. Right. The coverage unit, now that Boz is no longer kicking it 40 yards out of the end zone has been money. I mean, it's the special teams has been tremendous. And then block punts, block field goals. That's winning football.
Absolutely, and it came a big time. That was a big play, a big time for the Steelers because, like I said, that really kind of switched things more in their favor, even though they were already trending in that direction. And then they come back and they get the touchdown to make it 30-15. The Steelers defense again forces the Jets on 4th and 4 off the field with 7:53 left in the game, and that pretty much put it away. And as we said earlier, Najee Harris, that touchdown run in the fourth quarter, making it 37-6. The Steelers 31 unanswered points tonight, Brian. And in 2 weeks, last week they put up 32 in Las Vegas. They put up 31 this week. Last week, Brian and I on this show were talking about when was the last time the Steelers scored over 30 points in a game. Well, now they just did it back-to-back weeks. The offense is they're humming right now.
Well, compare quarterbacks just quickly. Aaron Rodgers, of course, gets paid all the money, right? Last season he was out, but this was supposed to be the year that he was going to dominate. I don't know, him and Russell Wilson have a lot in common, right? They're guys who are starting to be on the other side of their career. I guess we're happier that we had Russell Wilson tonight than we did Aaron Rodgers, who, by the way, I think is like the most lifeless, unlikable quarterback. Watching him is so uninspiring. Yeah. Anyone I would rather see come in and play the game of football when you see 70,000 fans cheering for you, and he would rather, I don't know, be at like a coffee shop listening to bongo music than
in a cave.
Yeah, lost another one. I guess I'll see what happens. I guess as you know, as teams are looking for what their future is, Aaron Rodgers is not the future of the Jets. Russell Wilson's not the future of the Steelers. But tonight,
right.
Two aging quarterbacks got it on, and we were on the good side of it, so we'll take it.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers' final numbers: 24 of 39, 276 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions.
And he could care less.
Yeah, other than when his hand was bleeding. That was a big shot, Brian. You might not have saw that in the stadium, but it was big on TV. His non-throwing hand was all bloody. He had gotten scraped up. Blood all over the uniform. Breece Hall, 12 carries for 38 yards and a touchdown. You know, there were times early on in this game, Don, where Hall seemed like he was going to run all over the Steelers. And this happened with Jonathan Taylor with the Colts and a few other running backs they faced this year, very good running backs they faced this year. And the Steelers run defense, they bend, but they don't break. They always seem to make adjustments. And holding Hall to only 38 yards, especially after that start, I thought was a pretty big success for that unit.
Yeah, they're good. They are very good at adjustments. I wish they would come out of the gates not having to make adjustments, because it does seem like, and hey, these are some of the best running backs in the league. So you tip your cap. I think the Jets have badly underutilized Hall this year. He really wasn't a major part of their game plan until last week in the loss to Buffalo. I say that as a fantasy football owner of Breece Hall, of course. He had success early, but then again, you nailed it, Edwin. I mean, they made adjustments, and he was contained. He's a great player, one of the top running backs, but they did a good job after a couple of missed tackles on a couple big plays early.
Hall goes 6 catches for 103 yards, though, in the air from a receiving standpoint. Garrett Wilson, 5 catches for 61 yards. Alan Lazard, 4 catches for 58 yards. And how about this? Devontae Adams, Brian, I probably didn't know it because you were in the stadium. He had 3 catches for 30 yards in the first half. In the second half, no catches, no yards. Adams was a non-factor in the second half there tonight for the New York Jets.
Well, Rodgers doesn't go deep. So the one thing he did do really well on us, and I think it has to be addressed, is Rodgers went over the middle on us like we didn't even have anybody on that field. And so things went like haywire on some of those. And, I think Watt batted one down. Maybe Hayward did as well. But over the middle, man, we just have a lot of problems. Even there was one, and forgive me for not remembering the specifics on it, where he did throw an incomplete pass either on 3rd or 4th down. Patrick Queen was trying to guard across the middle. He was like 5 yards behind the guy, and he dropped. And I know we celebrated for it, but a better quarterback may have picked us apart tonight and really, really killed us.
Kathy checks in and says, why don't we utilize both quarterbacks, one in the first half and right when the opponent starts to settle in, start the other one for the second half.
Oh, that's a good idea. I like that a lot. Do you like that, Don?
I do not. But I will say this. I was surprised we didn't see it today. I know that when they signed Russell and then they shortly thereafter they traded for Fields, they were talking about packages where they would have both in the game, not at the same time, but I think that you risk you want, and we saw it today with Wilson. He got into a groove. He struggled early, got into a groove, and if you do that flip flopping too much, then you risk, either one of them finding that groove and then staying in it.
Agreed. And if you do bring Fields in occasionally while Wilson is struggling, I think you lose the crowd if things are going wrong. You probably lose the momentum. You lose that swagger that you need from your quarterback to get that done. But it's, I don't think that it was ever in the plans that Fields would come in. I know that Collinsworth was wondering why he didn't try to push him in and he would be the bigger guy to get in there. I don't think the plan was ever to put Fields in today. If there was opportunity for him to do it, maybe they checked down and said, don't do it. But I don't think he was ever prepared to go in.
I think that I said to Ed earlier that if they don't connect on that first long pass to Pickens, who made a tremendous one-handed catch along right in front of the Steelers sidelines, that sort of got the offense going, the juices flowing. If it was another 3 and out, at that point, the crowd was already sort of, booing after the previous 3 and out. At that point, maybe you're forced to go to Fields. But I think you're right that if everything was going right, this was Wilson's game. Yeah. But I think down the road you'll definitely see Field in certain packages.
You might, but don't you think then, Don, that this is a QB problem, that we do have a QB controversy here in Pittsburgh because we had 3 bad 3rd and 3 and outs for Russell. He's getting booed a little bit. You were like, oh, if he has one more, maybe we'll have Fields come in. This is Kenny and Mason or Trubisky and Pickett all over again. If we're on the brink of a bad quarter for Russell and we want to get rid of him, when do you ever bring him back in?
Well, let me say, I would say that because this was his first game and he hadn't played in almost a year,
right,
calendar year, that you don't, at some point, if he's continuing to spike passes, short passes, then you make the change. I don't think that from here on in now, he's kind of, shook the rust off and really played a strong game. I think now this is his team. I think that barring an injury, or if he really, really has a bad game, again, you can go to Fields. You know what you have in him. But I think that we as fans may try to make it a controversy, but I think in the locker room, and I think Fields has had a great attitude about it as well. Russell was the starter all along, and now that he's healthy again, and I think he proved tonight why they made him the starter from the get-go.
We'll get back to some more of your comments here on Oneberg in just a second. But, gentlemen, real quick, Brian always loves when I hit the team stats at this point in the postgame show. The Steelers with 21 first downs to the Jets 17. Total yards, the Steelers 409 total yards to the Jets 323. How about that? The Steelers offense over 400 yards total tonight. And then penalties. I always look at the penalties. The Steelers only 4 penalties tonight for 36 yards. And if my memory serves me correct, that's probably one of the least, if not the least, penalized game they've had this year. Penalties have been a problem in the previous 6 games up until tonight. The Jets had 5 for 50. And, of course, everybody's favorite category, Don, time of possession. Steelers with 32 minutes and 9 seconds to the 27 minutes, 51 seconds to the Jets. Brian's going to sleep. But let's talk about something a little bit more important, the play of the offensive line tonight. I thought Ryan McCollum.
Can I jump in with
Sure, please do.
Did they show Trump on TV?
They did. What? Go ahead, Don.
Yeah, no, I mean, they showed him in the booth.
Briefly.
I think he was waving. It was very brief.
Okay. They didn't put him on the scoreboard. That was the big conversation in the parking lot was, the Rooneys are lifelong Democrats, right? There's no way they're going to put Trump on the scoreboard. I'm glad they didn't. I think it would have turned the crowd. The crowd was so hyped tonight on pro Steelers that I thought it would have divided the crowd down the middle. So I'm really glad they didn't do it.
Well, to be honest with you, I know he's campaigning in these parts, but I think because he's a New Yorker, so I think he might have been there to sort of root for the Jets.
Yes.
But I'm glad he had a blue suit, red tie, the standard.
Yes.
I'm glad he didn't show up in green because he would have lost a lot of votes here in the swing state.
Yeah, that's right. He is a New York guy, so
yeah.
Anyway, they didn't need it, but there was times when I was like, I wonder if they're going to show Trump. Here's the salute to service, and then there was that extended time period where these commercial breaks are longer, and I was like, I hope they don't. All politics aside, I thought it would take all the energy out of the stadium. So I'm glad
That's
they did.
Why they didn't.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, Brian. One thing that did happen on the TV side, I don't know if you were home yet or not. I'm guessing you probably weren't. I think, Don, what was it, about 2 or 3 minutes left in the game? WPXI cut away from Chris Collinsworth and Mike Tirico are talking about Russell Wilson and his performance tonight, and they cut away and they go to this ad.
We missed the Warren run that was challenged for a first down.
You missed the Warren run because 3/4 of the screen is Lisa Sylvester from WPXI News coming into the booth where Trump was with a microphone interviewing him, and it was exclusively tomorrow night on WPXI 5 and 6 o'clock, exclusive one-on-one interview with Donald Trump. And
wait, Lisa Sylvester got a camera in the box with.
Yeah, she interviewed him. It'll be on tomorrow night on But to Don's point, I don't care that they did that. My point is, I want to watch the game. And
I told my wife everyone should turn off Channel 11 as soon as this game's over in protest for them. Somebody hit the wrong button or whatever, but inexcusable.
I was like, is it first
local news stinks?
And the way they almost set it up, it was almost like she was live, and they were doing it live. They were going right in.
What was she going to ask him? What he was snacking on? What overpriced food did they bring in that booth? Some pulled pork sandwiches, or what did they? That's ridiculous.
No
Sweet pulled pork.
James checks in again and says, I think the Super Bowl is not out of reach with how no one in the AFC stands out. They get
Kansas City 6-0.
They get Kirk. They are legit. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but they haven't been playing great football.
My son told me they're 3 plays away from being 3-3.
Your son's right.
Wrong. He's not wrong.
Your son's right. Yeah, hey, they know how to win, and that helps a lot in games when you're not playing your best. But I think at some point they're still no question the favorites in the AFC. But that's a good point too. Is that they're really okay? Who is 2? Is it Baltimore? They got a nice challenge tomorrow night. We'll find out. Steelers, you got to consider them in the mix. Houston, although they lost this afternoon to Green Bay. So, why not?
Sorry, guys, we have to interrupt. Lisa Sylvester is at the Heinz Silver, a janitor.
Did she just break into? She's got a camera and she's just broke into your little office there.
She's right here. Please.
Arlie checks in and says the Steelers only had Najee. Warren was out. Different team with both running backs healthy. Fields was the other running back. So basically making the point with Najee and Warren both being healthy, the running game took good shape. Kathy, your good friend Kathy, checks in again. She goes, what's up with all 3 of you and your eyeglasses? Doesn't anyone wear contacts anymore? Kathy, this is always a good sign that it's a late Steeler game when I have the glasses on, because I do wear contacts, but I can't wear them past – I'm too old. I can't wear them past 9 o'clock at night.
I haven't worn contacts since college. I got an eye infection, and I said, screw this, and I've been wearing glasses ever since.
I'm not even commenting. I don't owe Kathy an explanation of what I'm doing.
Come on. Come clean.
No. Is it with a C? Wait, is it with a C or with a K, Ed? I can't see the screen.
Let's go back. Kathy with a K.
No way. Get out of here. If a Kathy with a C has a question about my life, I'll answer it.
James says, let's talk Boswell. Boz's money, MVP. James is not wrong there either. I think throughout the first 7 games, Don, Chris Boswell might be your MVP, huh?
I mean, he doesn't even make it exciting. Like, sometimes these kickers will hook a field goal inside the upright. His are dead center almost every time, no matter if it's a short field goal or a long field goal.
Yeah, either way, he comes back and is Mr. Consistency. Mr. Consistency, Chris Boswell.
The point or you made a couple of viewers ago about Warren is dead on too. I think he came back last week, but really you could tell he didn't have his game legs yet. But that changed a little bit this week, and I expect a little bit more next week. Harris is having a phenomenal season. He's, it helps that he's playing for a contract, and that's great. The one thing, as hard as those two run, that nobody ever talks about is they never put the ball on the field. Now, watch, they'll fumble 3 times next Monday against the Giants, but that's, they're running usually into piles of people, and yet that is not an issue.
Never has been with Warren. Harris did on Roethlisberger's last season, right? He had a lot of oops going on, but he's figured that out, man. I agree with you.
That was 3 years ago, my friend.
I know. He's come a long way.
Hey, Ed, did you? And Brian might have missed this because he might have been gone by then, because it was late. It was, I think, on that last drive. The Harris ran into a pile. The pile was still moving forward. At no point was it really stopped. The NFL has really allowed that to happen now, where, guys,
right,
all of a sudden, all these people come in and the pile's pushing downfield. He had actually broke loose out of that, but they had blown the whistle. And I thought that was nitpicking, but I thought it was a quick whistle.
No, I thought it was too, Don. And in fact, because his feet were still moving, It was really a quick boom type play. And he picked up another 7 or 8 yards after that. So if they let that play continue on, which I think they should have, I agree. I think that was a premature whistle on that. I was kind of surprised by that too. But you're right, Najee Harris. Brian every week says it, and he's right. He's playing for a contract. Every game he's out there, he's playing for his next NFL team, because I'm not sure the Steelers will retain him at the end of the season. Go ahead, Brian.
Was Antonio Brown with Trump?
No, they didn't. I was surprised by that. I thought him and Le'Veon Bell were supposed to be with him, but it looked like it was just a quick shot of him. And Mike Tirico, of course.
No Brown at all.
No, but Kathy does check in and says, was the chanting of USA, USA, USA for Trump or the Navy SEAL that was being honored? Twitter is a buzz right now with people arguing about that. There you go.
Well, there's two things, and not we don't think it's so Trumpy, but
no.
USA was being chanted for that Navy SEAL, but there was a girl, big fake boobs in a tank top who ran on the field in the third quarter with a Trump sign, and they took her out, and people did start chanting USA when they took her out.
Yeah, they did stop the game briefly on the
most times you take the streaker down into the stadium jail, they might have taken her up to the box or something.
You know what I mean? They're like, Trump wants to meet you.
But they do that big cutaway shot. Anytime they do that, they do the big stadium shot because they never want to show you anything. Hey, Wayne checks in and said this win is without Cordell Patterson too. Bring any team on, we're starting to gel. Yeah, Patterson, of course, out with another injury, and he just adds another element to that running game as well. He looked good a few weeks ago before he got hurt in Indianapolis, that was for sure. And one last point, guys, and we can wrap it up here shortly. What time is it? Yeah, past 12:30. Not as bad as last time, Dawn. The last Sunday night game Brian and I did, we didn't even go on till after 1 a.m.
Well, that was after the storm.
That was a late one due to all the lightning strikes. Yeah, after the storms. But real quick, I want to talk about that offensive line. Ryan McCollum goes in at center. He did very well tonight. Mason McCormick continued to have another strong game. Broderick Jones, for as much as we've criticized him throughout the first part of the season, very quiet tonight. You didn't hear his name at all. And once again, as I always say, when you don't hear an offensive lineman's name, that's a good thing. He's not being beat. He's not getting penalized. I did not hear Broderick Jones at all tonight, which means he did his job. Dan Moore, Salamalu, of course, comes back after the injury. The offensive line, again, another different offensive line. They played 7 games, and I believe they've had 5 or 6 games with different. The only 2 games this year they've had the same 5 offensive linemen.
Everyone was raving about their depth up in Latrobe at the offensive line, and they were at the time when everyone was healthy, sort of speculating, "Hey, could this guy be traded? Hey, could this guy be traded?" Thank goodness they didn't pull the trigger, because they have, after a couple of years where they've been healthy at that position, they have needed the depth. And I'm glad you pointed out McCollum. That was a big question mark coming in, but he held his own right up the middle. And I tell you, I'm getting more and more impressed with McCormick. I think he has, they were high on him when they drafted him. They were thinking of, if they didn't get Frazier, of drafting him as a center, but he has really done well at guard. And when they get Frazier back, and if they can stay healthy, I think that line becomes the strength that we all thought it would be.
Yeah, they've done a nice job the last few weeks, that's for sure. And even tonight, I thought Russell Wilson was, pushed out of the pocket a few times, but overall, I thought pretty good protection for him. Guys, AFC North, Don, you mentioned it before. Tomorrow night, big game. Monday night, not tomorrow night. I guess it's tonight. It's 12:30, 6 a.m. Tonight, Monday Night Football. We can talk about that. Features the Baltimore Ravens at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That'll be a big one there, as the Ravens currently with the Steelers at the top the AFC North. Steelers 5-2, Ravens 4-2. Cincinnati Bengals, they defeat the Cleveland Browns. And I want to talk to you guys quick about that here. 21-14 this afternoon. So now you look at Cincinnati, they're 3-4 in the AFC North, and Cleveland 1-5. That was an interesting game. Deshaun Watson goes out, he gets hurt. Cleveland fans cheer, and everybody in Cleveland on the Cleveland Browns team are offended. I don't know if you've seen some of the quotes that have come out since the end of that game, but everybody is just offended how such a stellar citizen such as Deshaun Watson would get booed when he's been such under great behavior the last few years.
And he's been an all-star, all-pro too, right?
Yeah, that was a comment that I saw was, is he a worse person or a worse quarterback? I mean, it's a legitimate question.
That was a big win for Cincinnati, because if they lose that game, and again, that was like, I don't know if you guys caught that game this afternoon or not, but it was a little bit of a snoozer. Yeah. Other than when that stuff happened. I don't know. I've watched Cincinnati a bunch of times so far this season. I've not been impressed with the Bengals. They do have Joe Burrow, though, so they're always going to be in it because of that. For all intensive purposes, we probably think the Browns are done, right, at 1-5.
Well, they're probably a top 5 draft choice, maybe even work their way to number 1. The fact that they kept Watson in all these weeks tells me that right now they themselves have thrown the hat in. At least management has. Bengals do have Burrow. Higgins coming back makes them dangerous offensively, but they still have big questions defensively. I think you can, we're talking about different quarterback styles the Steelers have now. That's a team you definitely want to have Russell Wilson quarterbacking, because their pass defense is kind of a mess.
Brian, your thoughts on the AFC North? Did you catch that Browns-Bengals game this afternoon?
No, but I mean, I love to see that the Browns are out. The Bengals, I hate to see some life. I guess I would have rather seen the Browns win to kind of push the Bengals further down. But
right
now, I mean, I guess we're just, those are 2 bad teams, and the Steelers and the Ravens are good teams. But the one good thing could be is if hopefully we beat the Browns twice. Maybe we split with the Bengals, and maybe we split with the Ravens. We're in the playoffs if that happens, as we enter the hard knock zone of our schedule. So if we can split a couple games and take care of Cleveland, we're in. We've done ourselves some favors being 5-2.
When does the hard knocks start for the Steelers, the HBO hard knocks? That's going to be the whole AFC North, including the Steelers showcase this fall. That should be starting soon, I would think.
Yeah, I think November at some point. Yeah.
The last 2 months of the season.
Told me that it's November.
What's that? Who did?
Lisa Sylvester from WTXI told me it's in November.
She broke into your suite, right? Your suite.
She was in my bathroom when I got home.
Oh, man. Next week, the Steelers, Monday Night Football. 1 week from tonight, they will host the New York Football Giants.
Who got killed today, right? They lost big.
Yeah, they did by Philadelphia, which
Yeah.
You know, I mean, everyone was high on the Eagles coming into this year, but that's a bad loss for the Giants.
And your boy Kenny Pickett got in today, Don. This was the first time we saw him officially in an Eagles uniform on the field. He had like 11 minutes of, I think he fumbled once, maybe threw an interception, and
Oh, really?
and handed off the rest.
Was hurt? Did Hurt get hurt, or was it
they
just
pulled
garbage?
it? It was such a blowout.
Okay. All right.
And Mason Rudolph started for the Titans today, right?
Yeah,
See?
didn't help.
As the NFL turns.
How about that? On a day in which Russell Wilson returns for the Steelers, Kenny Pickett gets in for the Eagles, and Mason Rudolph starts for the Titans. That's the NFL script for you. All in one day.
Sylvester got the interview of a lifetime.
That's it. That's it. And on that note,
and David and Peggy have to wonder where were we? We were at home. We weren't aggressive journalists.
That's right.
On that note, we will call it a show. How about that? Steelers win. Final score from AccuShore Stadium, 37-15. Steelers over the Jets. Don, we want to thank you for coming on. Let's do it again soon. We always love having you on for us, with us, for us, with us, always with us, right? And Brian,
I always appreciate the invitation. Good job by you two.
And Brian, who rushed home from AccuShore Stadium to make sure he could join us here tonight too. That's great stuff.
You know, and before we talked about the Ed's take on the AFC North, I'm seeing it's 12:41. At like 12:30, I still felt like I had like a 25% chance of getting laid tonight. But
Not
after
now.
Ed started talking about the AFC North and like time of possession, my wife went to bed.
That's past. That's past. Hey, do you have the billboard to show us?
Nope.
No
billboard. I got to get to work.
No billboard. You got to get to work. Dawn, Brian Wunberg has a billboard up on the Parkway West in Green Tree, and after each Steeler game, there's always some fun saying up there that they do. So we'll have to look for that tomorrow.
Wow.
Yep, we're gonna get it up there first thing in the morning. You'll see it heading to work.
Hey, the one programming note: the Three Rivers podcast will be on this Tuesday, 11 a.m. with Richie Walsh. Will be on with us then, and Brian is.
Did you say Richie Walsh?
Yes, Richie Walsh will be on with us. How about that?
He probably knows Sylvester. At least
he might. Maybe he could break in and talk to us. That's for sure. So
yeah.
All right, that will do it for the postgame show. For Brian Carruthers, Don Rebel, myself, Ed Troop, signing off for now. Steelers win. They're 5-2 on the season, 37-15 final. Thanks for joining us here on the Shenderovich and Fishman Steeler postgame show